Hello and welcome to this quick video on the reasons democracy is a good thing. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm just going to take you through some of the strong arguments why democracy is a very good form of government. So let's just remind ourselves what democracy actually is. So democracy is a government by the people, for the people and of the people. So in kind of layman's speak, democracy is a system that gives power to each and every citizen to actively participate in the government of the country. So everybody in this country over the age of 18 gets to vote on who is in charge, who the leaders are. So what I'm going to do very quickly is just going to take you through some of the key arguments as to why democracy is such a good thing. So the first one is this idea of human rights. So we looked last time at our right to freer speech, and human rights are what we call the inherent rights that every person should have just because he or she is a human. So we have certain rights as a citizen, so the right to, for example, in the UK, education. And democracy ensures that these basic human rights are granted to each citizen of the country. In other forms of government, like a dictatorship, they don't necessarily give their people rights, whereas in a democracy, we all have rights. The second one is this idea that we have more freedom of speech. Now, we looked last time at the fact that obviously some people confuse this idea of freedom of speech, thinking that you can say what you like. Well, obviously we can't do that because we have to work as a society, but we do have more freedom of speech. So people have the right to express their opinions about topics as long as it doesn't discriminate against others. And that's the really crucial part, that it cannot discriminate against others. We do have laws about that. We call that hate speech, so you can't do that. But we have a lot more rights in terms of what we can say than in a lot of other countries. One of the big arguments for democracy is it gives power to the people. The word democracy itself literally means power to the people. In a democracy, each and every citizen has the power to decide who runs the country. Now, it didn't used to be the case, and we've just looked at the history of democracy in this country. It didn't used to be the case that everybody does or did have the right to vote, but we do now. So that's a really important thing, that the people have the power. So if something isn't going right, the people have a voice and can get rid of the people they've elected. And on that note, another of the strong arguments for why democracy is a good thing is it makes the government responsible to the people. The government are chosen by the nation, they're chosen by the citizens. And in this country, every 5 years, we have an election to decide who should be the leaders. So if the leaders aren't doing a very good job, they know that they're going to be kicked out. They know they're going to lose the next election. So that makes the leaders very responsible to the people, and they know they have to please the people. What a democracy should also do is it should make better citizens, because we've got to elect the leaders. So we've got to be informed. That's why it's so important we learn these things now, because we as citizens have got to be informed when it comes to casting that vote. If we're not informed, then actually we're not casting our vote properly. So we've really got to make sure that we are informed. So we have the right to debate issues. We have the right to protest against the government peacefully if it's not doing the job properly. And there's various mechanisms, ways that we can hold the government to account. But it should do, in a good democracy, citizens should be very informed and know their rights, know their responsibilities. Another big argument for why democracy is such a good thing is this idea of equality. Democracy doesn't discriminate against anyone on the basis of gender and on the basis of race. So every person has the right to vote, regardless of those things. Remember, that wasn't always the case in this country, though, because obviously women didn't have the vote until just after the First World War. So actually, democracy didn't used to promote equality, but the type of democracy we have now does. Another big idea, another big reason why democracy is such a good thing is this idea of transparency. Remember, if something is transparent, you can see through it. So it should be very visible. And that's certainly the case in this country. So anytime a law is passed, there has to be a session in Parliament where they debate it. That's all recorded, so all the public can see exactly who has argued what, who's argued against it. And equally, when our members of parliament or our MPs vote, we know which way they voted. So the government can't just make secret laws. It has to be very open and honest about what it is doing. Now, a good democracy should also promote peace and harmony. So it should make sure that everybody's rights are protected. And that's why we know it's so important that there is limits on the freedom of speech, because we can't discriminate, because that would be stopping somebody else's right. So anyone who promotes violence is punished by the law. So we have strict laws about those sorts of things. So it should do, if it's working properly, promote social peace and harmony. And lastly, a good democracy should promote a debate culture. It should ensure that there are debates and group discussions, and everybody is given a voice to share their ideas, to discuss things, to debate things, to not argue. I'm not talking about just throwing arguments and throwing insults at each other. We're talking about debating ideas. And in a good democracy, we should be able to debate ideas without being personal. So it should just be about the ideas. And obviously, there are things in life where people have differences of opinion, and that's okay in a democracy. Difference of opinion is a good thing, and what actually that usually means is that it leads to compromise and a better solution. So what I want you to do is, we've got this question: why is democracy a good thing? And I want you to just pick 3 of the reasons that I've just given as to why democracy is a good thing. And we're just going to write a short paragraph about why democracy is a good thing. We know that you wrote some brilliant paragraphs last week in terms of freedom of speech. So again, in a similar vein, we've got to try and explain ourselves. So we need to use this word because quite a lot. Okay, so I'll give you an example. So we could write, there are many reasons that democracy is a good thing. For example, it ensures that we have, and you could use any of those 10 reasons I've given. So it could be, for example, human rights. This is important because you need to explain why that is important. Why is it important people have human rights? Why is that such an important thing? Why is it important people have the right to healthcare, have the right to education? Why? So what? Once you've done that, you go on to the second one. So another reason democracy is a good thing is, and again, you talk about a second reason. So it might be the example of equality, and you say this is important because, and why is it important that men and women and different races all have an equal voice? Why is that important? We know that everybody is human, and therefore it's obviously so important that everyone is treated as such. Okay, so if you go to the Google form, you just need to write that paragraph on why democracy is a good thing. Remember, pick 3 of the reasons I've given. Okay, well done everyone. Brilliant work as always, and next time we'll continue our journey to make sure that we are well-informed citizens.